Yeah, that was awesome. That's big time stuff with Chris. Brings back some great memories. See, I always told people that ball was deflected when I intercepted Brady. I don't tell people that, obviously. I tell them it was a, because there's a picture in the USA Today back then. It looks like I'm catching with one hand. It was really tipped like 3 or 4 times. So I just tell people I had a one hand pick versus Brady.
You run with that, sir. You have every right because it's true.
And the beauty of it is drafted right after.
Oh, that's right. Back to back.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 2000 draft. I was number 198. Brady was number 199.
How about that? For anybody who didn't realize that, our guy Matt Bowen drafted right next to Brady. Tom Brady cloned his dog. We found out this earlier today, that his dog is actually a clone of his former dog from a company that he's an investor in. And now we're wondering, you think it's possible? It's true, Matt. You think it's possible he's going to clone himself and try to raise a quarterback to be even better than him? Your thoughts?
Oh, I don't even know what to say, Steve. I mean, this can't be real, right?
Oh, the dog cloning is real.
Yeah, apparently it is. I don't know. It's probably dangerous territory. We should just move on.
You think so? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is.
Whatever. You guys are chickens.
Yeah, all right. Well, how about this? What was your experience like watching the Bears game on Sunday?
Well, I'm a defensive guy, so there were some tough moments watching that game. If you're looking just at this football game on both sides, Cincinnati's defense, what we saw from the Bears, there's a lot of negative plays on that tape. I went back today and watched, the Bengals pass game. And remember earlier in the season, maybe it was the first week of the season, when I talked about the ability to limit explosive plays, right? And how important that is from a defensive perspective. The Bears gave up 10 explosive play throws to Joe Flacco. 10. That's an enormous number, enormous. And there's multiple reasons for it. It's losing one-on-ones. It's not getting to depth or not squeezing the seams in cover 2. There was a busted coverage on a crossing route where Stevenson drops the crosser and there's no one home. But you can simply not do that in a football game and expect to win unless you're playing against Cincinnati right now, because they're even worse on defense. And look, I know it's just one football game, but if I'm Dennis Allen, when I get in that office on Monday and the players come in, I would put together a play of 20, 25 negative plays and have a correction tape to watch and say, look, you never apologize for winning a football game at any level. Never do that. But this simply isn't good enough, and we have to get better.
Matt, this is the segment I've been waiting for since that game ended. A chance to talk with you about why and how that defense collapsed the way it did. The players were quoted afterwards and said it's just a bunch of our errors, to be honest. Like, that's what Byard said, and that's what Nashawn Wright said. So were there schematic problems for Dennis Allen, or did you see more player errors as you watched the thing?
I would say player errors within the scheme. Right, cover 2, that's been around forever, right? So I think Brisker had some tough moments in cover 2 where he could have squeezed the seam a little bit harder, gotten there quicker, whether it's on the touchdown throw, both touchdown throws. You have to be in a position when number 1 gets removed because jammed outside as a cover 2 safety. You have to squeeze inside and get in a position to top number 2. But that's one that stood out. And the winning the one-on-ones. I know T. Higgins is a great player, but Wright's in a position to make a play. You got to make a play. I'm sorry, you got to locate the football and you got to finish. That's your job in that situation. I don't care if it's T. Higgins or a third wide receiver on a football team. When you're in position, he was in great position. You got to locate the ball. And there's a couple of those where the Bears defensive backs just didn't locate the ball and finish plays. And ultimately, I'll be perfectly honest. When you're watching that, when I watched that tape today, they looked a step slow. They really did. And I think it's okay to say that right now they're a little speed deficient in the secondary.
Interesting. You mentioned Brisker. I wondered if he had a bad game, partially wondering because of how much he talked leading up to it, but also because we think of him as a run supporter and a playmaker by the line of scrimmage, but this team got beat. Yes. I mean, there's got to be some stuff that's on him. You mentioned a couple things.
There is, and those are easily correctable. Those are playing fast with your eyes. Those are understanding what the corner's doing outside in cover 2 to give you time to push back inside of the slot receiver running a seam. And to me, Speed, that's easily correctable. But to your point, that's what he is. And you're talking about his impact ability. It is in the box. It's near the line of scrimmage. It's being a disruptor, being a physical presence. But when he's deep, in the deep half, last week Cincinnati found a way to expose him.
Matt, when we watch the run game of the Bears, yeah, Cincinnati's defense is not very good. They're last when it comes to defending the run in pretty much every category. I really enjoyed, though, watching Bears offensive linemen, whether it was Darnell Wright or Theo Benedict, Bears receivers, Olamide Zaccheaus, he was really good, and Rome was really good. They got on blocks and finished blocks to help a hard-running Kyle Monangai have a great day.
Yeah, Monangai's fun to watch, man. He runs angry, he runs violent, he runs decisive with the football. Excellent pad level, can push the pile. And more importantly, the contact balance really, really jumps. He gets you extra yards. That's what he does. He can give you 2 or 3 extra yards of carry because he's falling forward, because he is pushing that pile. And I agree, across the board, what they did in the run game was excellent. And if I'm Ben Johnson, I can't wait to watch that tape when I get off the plane. And that's what you want to show your football team is, look, what we can do together as a run offense. Because I've always said, the top NFL offenses, the run game is still the foundation of what they do. You need to build the pass game out of it. That was excellent. Yeah, that was really fun to watch.
All right, but you can tell us just how bad is that Bengals front seven, Matt?
Oh, they don't have impact players. They simply don't. And that's one of the major issues with them now. And look, they played pretty good in the secondary. DJ Turner had a really good game against Rome Odunze. There's some reps on there where he really challenged them and limited space, limited separation. They did some good things at times in the secondary, but up front, it's just a lack of impact players, a lack of difference makers. And, look, we know they have an injury at defensive end, but they need much more up front to compete.
Look, Matt, you mentioned Rome Odunze, and he had a rough day, obviously, with no catches, but we were talking about him as a blocker. He seems to be doing a job. Olamide Zaccheaus had a good game blocking with some very specific highlights. They're the second best running team in the NFL, which is unbelievable when you think about how things started and our concerns about DeAndre Swift and going to get a running back. This is some Ben Johnson stuff we're seeing. And tell us about the functionality of the run game as you watch it.
Right, well, that's the culture of your football team. That's a really positive sign for a first-year coach, that you've developed that culture that quickly. Because look, you can run for 4 yards of carry, and that's great. But if you really want to be a productive run offense, your wide receivers have to block. Well, that's how you create explosive plays. If you can block on the perimeter, that's how you get to the edges. There's so much value in wide receivers blocking, whether it's cracking inside, whether it's stalk blocking. Well, they're doing multiple things within Ben Johnson's offense. But what they're doing on the perimeter right now is allowing them to run the ball at a much more successful rate. And again, it's a team thing, it's a culture thing, and that's something that, if you've built it already, will carry over throughout the second half of the season when you really need to run the football.
What did the tape review tell you about Caleb?
I think there was a couple big-time throws. Remember last week I said to Speaks, how many do you need, 3 to 4? 2 of them really stand out. Well, 3 of them do, and they were all to Colton Loveland. I think the first one, if I was still doing the NFL matchup show, the first touchdown to Colton Loveland would be on the show this weekend. That's a perfect play to show. And, Colton Loveland in that situation is playing the boundary X receiver, so he's split outside. A boundary X receiver is, a Mike Evans, a DK Metcalf, that type of position, that type of isolation throw. That's what they did. And they got him in a perfect situation in terms of red zone matchup. They released the back outside to force the linebacker to expand. Now there's a window. But Caleb had to create that window. So what does he do? He keeps his eyes on the linebacker and the post safety. He holds him there. He freezes him there. That's how you create your own window as a thrower. And then he threw an absolute laser to Loveland. The other one was a deep in breaker to Loveland. That's what I call a dagger concept. You clear out, and then you bring the in breaker behind it. And again, that's him removed from the formation. Now, obviously, the one at the end of the football game. But again, what do we see there? Removed from the formation. I put it on social today. I think he had 11 routes run from tight alignments, 10 from wide, 7 from the slot, and 1 from the backfield. So you're seeing how versatile he can be when he's a major part of the game plan. But in terms of Caleb, the negatives, it's like we've talked about throughout the season. You still need to see a stronger sense of timing and throwing the ball at a more precise location. Those are the areas he still has to improve. And I'll tell you what, when he plays under center, I think he throws with much better timing. Another thing I struggle with as a coach at the high school level, it's hard to throw on time, in my opinion, when you're in the shotgun consistently, because your footwork is not the same. When you're under center, 3 and 5 and play action drop, when you hit that back foot, the ball is supposed to come out. I think it's a muscle memory thing for quarterbacks, and I think Caleb does a much better job when he's under center.
Wow, that's really interesting. Troy Aikman told us that a few years back, and now we're kind of seeing it, and you're seeing it as you look on the tape right here, because it forces you to play in structure more, right, Matt? And and that seems to be a big issue for Caleb. That's fascinating. Matt Bowen here with us on Spiegel and Holmes. I love that stuff about where Colton Loveland was lined up all over the place. I don't know if you saw Brad Biggs this week. He wrote about how Sam Laporta gets a lot of production as the third and even fourth read in Detroit's passing game. And did Ben Johnson move Loveland up towards the 1 or 2 read sometimes in this game? Because I don't think he was getting targeted, perhaps because Caleb wasn't getting to 3 and 4 sometimes.
Right. I think he moved him up. And those throws specifically I just talked about, he did for sure. But that's what he can give you. And it's just basic stuff, Speaks. There's easy ways to scheme him. I use the term high-low. And high-low can be, a shallow crosser with an in-breaker behind it. It can be a sit route underneath with a seam route behind it. There are so many different ways to get him open because he can align everywhere in the football field for you. And I think that's the would be the fun part from a coaching perspective is how can I get him open this week? What are we going to see based on coverage standards here? What are the man matchups I can give him? Because you saw that touchdown, when he breaks inside, and I've been in this situation as defensive back, you're not getting to the football. You're just not, because of the frame he has at the point of attack. You can't locate the ball, and he can shield you from the ball. No different than boxing someone out in basketball, in the low post. That's what he can do for you in the red zone. So if I'm Ben Johnson, based on what I just did this past week, that is going to move up in the call sheet. When I get the ball in the red zone, especially the low red zone, 10-yard line and in, that's where I want to isolate him, especially at that X receiver spot.
I know it was 5 years ago, but did you remember at all what you thought about Tryon Shoyinka when he was coming out of Washington?
I do. I remember writing about him at ESPN when we did some of our draft work. And to me, that is someone with physical tools. 6'5", 260, around 260 pounds. Maybe a better fit as a 34 outside linebacker because he is so athletic. He can drop into coverage. He can match and carry a seam up the field. But what I remember writing back then is he needed much more refinement as a pass rusher. It can't just be the physical tools. I don't think that's a thing for him right now in terms of where he hasn't taken that next step. But if you're the Bears and you are looking for a replacement, someone to get at the trade deadline, this is someone you take a flyer on when you're giving away a 7th-round pick because he has those traits, he has those tools. And maybe someone in that building, had a pretty high grade on him coming out of college, and that's what they're using it for now. Saying, look, let's get him in our system, because right now, if you bring someone at this point of the year, Lawrence, he's probably going to be a rotational pass rusher. But what if they can get production out of him and allows them to, build even more depth in the deeper rotation?
I love the move, honestly, because I think that in Dennis Allen's system, where he does occasionally like to drop those type of players into coverage, he's a guy that's shown that he can do it. Good luck against Bishop Mack this week, Coach.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Hey, Coach, I got to say that there's a recruiting battle going on for your son. It seems that Alex really wants to get young Grant Bowen to Iowa, if I'm reading this correctly. Lawrence, has Alabama offered him yet?
Not yet, but we'll be there.
Okay, well, I saw that Illinois offered him, so I imagine Olin will have something to say about that on behalf of the Kreutz brothers.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot going on here, Coach, about young Grant Bowen.
No, he's played very good football for us this year. He's developed a lot. More importantly, what I'm proud of, and this is the coach, more importantly, as a father, he's a great teammate. He's a great teammate, and he has really high character. That's what I'm concerned about, because that's what I can tell coaches when they ask about him. They can see the traits, they can see the size, they can see the speed. But when you're talking about your own players, especially your own son, you want to tell them about the intangibles they have and the intangibles that separate them, and that will allow them to grow and develop at the college level. And that's what I love talking about with my son, Grant.
Oh, I love that. All right, Coach, go get back on the practice field. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thank you.